There is a moment that happens inside every friendship, and almost nobody talks about it. A man tells a friend something good that happened to him, a promotion, a breakthrough, a win he worked for, and for less than a second, before the congratulations arrive, something else crosses the friend's face. It is fast, faster than language, a flicker behind the eyes that does not match the words that follow, and the man notices it. He notices it and keeps talking. He accepts the smile that comes after, because the alternative that the person sitting across from him felt something other than happiness at his success is too uncomfortable to examine. So he files it somewhere unnamed, unprocessed, moves on. But his nervous system does not move on. The nervous system keeps the file open because the body keeps records that the social brain is trained to delete. That flicker has a history. It is older than psychology, older than language, older than civilization. It was on the face of Brutus when Caesar was appointed dictator for life. It was on the face of every advisor who ever watched a king rise higher than the alliance was built to handle. 5 centuries ago, a man named Niccolò Machiavelli stopped pretending the flicker was an anomaly and started treating it as the operating system. He dissected human alliance with the precision of a surgeon, no sentiment, no flinching, just the architecture laid bare on the table. And what he found underneath friendship is something the entire modern world has been trying to bury ever since, because it rewrites every rule ever taught about loyalty, trust, and what actually holds people together. Here is the first thing they hid. When a child is young, the adults in his life perform a magic trick so convincing that most people never recover from it. They tell him that friendship is about loyalty, that a real friend is someone who stays no matter what, that the bonds formed with other people are held together by love, by shared experience, by some invisible thread that connects good people to other good people and endures through time and difficulty and change. Beautiful, warm, and precisely engineered to produce an adult who never examines the terms of his own relationships. Because here is what friendship actually is, and the people who built the social systems knew this, even if the people who raised children within those systems did not. Friendship is an alliance. Every friendship, from the most casual acquaintance to the deepest bond a man has ever felt, is built on a contract of mutual benefit. Nobody writes the contract. Nobody reads the terms. Nobody signs at the bottom, but the terms are there operating underneath every interaction, governing every exchange of time, energy, attention, and vulnerability. And the terms are simple enough to be devastating. This bond exists because both people are getting something from it that they cannot easily get somewhere else. The moment that changes, the moment the cost of the alliance exceeds the benefit, or the benefit becomes available elsewhere at a lower price, the contract renegotiates itself, with or without knowledge, with or without consent, with or without a single honest conversation about what just happened. Machiavelli did not invent this. He just refused to look away from it. He lived in 15th century Florence, a city where friendship was the most dangerous commodity in politics. A man's friends determined his access to power. His friends had the power to elevate him to the ruling council or have him exiled and stripped of everything overnight. Machiavelli watched Lorenzo de' Medici maintain an empire, not through military force, but through an intricate network of alliances, disguised as friendships, dinner invitations that were loyalty tests, gifts that were debts, favors that were chains. And when the alliances shifted, when the benefit calculus changed, when a man's usefulness expired, the friendships dissolved so quickly that historians struggle to find the seam between alliance and abandonment. Because there was no seam, The alliance was the friendship. The emotions were real. The loyalty was situational. And the man who confused the two was the man who woke up one morning to discover that every friend he had was now his replacement's friend instead. This is not ancient history. This is Thursday. Consider how friendships actually form, not the story told about them, the actual mechanics. Two people meet. They discover a shared context, same workplace, same neighborhood, same frustration. Same level of struggle, same distance from the life they want. And inside that shared context, something clicks. Not magic, alignment. Their interests overlap. Their frustrations mirror each other. Their limitations create a shared language that feels like intimacy but functions like a contract. I will validate his complaints if he validates mine. I will make his stagnation feel normal if he makes mine feel acceptable. I will never outgrow this shared space if he promises to stay here with me. Nobody says this out loud. Nobody even thinks it consciously. But the contract is operating. It operates in every friendship, every alliance, every relationship that a man believes is held together by something more noble than mutual convenience. The emotions on top are real. The architecture underneath is strategic, and the man who sees both the emotions and the architecture is the man who is never blindsided when one of them shifts. Julius Caesar had a best friend. His name was Brutus. And the friendship between Caesar and Brutus is the most famous alliance in human history because it demonstrates exactly what Machiavelli would later write about with clinical precision. Caesar loved Brutus. The historical record is clear. The affection was genuine, personal, almost paternal. Caesar promoted Brutus, protected Brutus, gave Brutus political appointments that men twice his age would have killed for. And Brutus, by every visible measure, loved Caesar in return. But the contract underneath the friendship had terms that neither man ever spoke. Brutus was a Republican. He believed in the Roman Senate as the governing body of the Republic. Caesar was accumulating power that the Senate had no ability to control. And as long as Caesar's power stayed within the boundaries that Brutus was willing to philosophically tolerate, the friendship and the contract were aligned. The emotions and the architecture pointed in the same direction. The loyalty was effortless because the interests were compatible. The moment Caesar was appointed dictator, perpetuo dictator for life, the contract broke. Not the friendship, the contract. Brutus still loved Caesar. The historical sources suggest he agonized for months. The affection did not disappear, but the affection was being asked to carry weight that the architecture no longer supported. On the Ides of March, in 44 BC, Brutus drove a dagger into the man who had loved him like a son, not because he was evil, because the contract expired and the friendship, stripped of its structural support, did not hold. Et tu, Brute, 3 words, the most famous expression of surprise in history, and the surprise is the lesson. Caesar, one of the most brilliant strategic minds in human civilization, was blindsided by his best friend, not because Caesar was stupid, because Caesar believed his own story about what the friendship was. He saw the emotions, he missed the architecture, and the dagger came from the hand he never expected because he never examined the contract that hand was operating under. Sit with that for a second. Now here is where this gets darkly funny. Because once the contract is visible, the absurdity of everything built on top of it becomes impossible to ignore. The rituals of friendship, the birthday messages, the congratulatory texts, the performative check-ins that arrive at precisely the frequency required to maintain the appearance of closeness without the cost of actual intimacy. How are you? Good. You? Good. We should catch up. Definitely. 6 months pass. We should catch up. Definitely. This is not friendship. This is contract maintenance, the minimum viable interaction required to keep the alliance technically active so that it can be reactivated if conditions change and the mutual benefit returns. It is the human equivalent of paying the minimum balance on a credit card nobody uses but nobody is ready to cancel. Both parties know this. Both parties participate in the performance. And both parties would be genuinely offended if anyone named it out loud, because naming it breaks the spell, and the spell is the only thing making the maintenance feel like connection. Machiavelli would have found modern social media absolutely hilarious. The entire architecture of online friendship is a contract management system with a sentimental interface. The like is not affection. It is a micropayment on an alliance, a signal that says, I acknowledge your existence and reserve the right to call on you later. The comment is not engagement. It is a public display of contract status, a signal to the network that this alliance is active. And the unfollow, the digital equivalent of letting a contract expire, is treated as a personal betrayal precisely because it exposes what the follow was actually worth, which was never loyalty, it was access. And access, once revoked, reveals the difference between a bond and a subscription. Remember that, the balance. This is where the architecture becomes personal and the flicker starts to make sense. Friendships are stable when both people stand on roughly the same ground, same struggles, same status, same distance from the life they want. This equality is not spoken. It is felt the way gravity is felt without thinking about physics. And it is comfortable. Comfortable enough that most people mistake the comfort for the friendship itself. They think they are close because they feel at ease. They are actually at ease because they are close in position. The comfort comes from the alignment, not from the person. And the moment those two things pull apart, the truth about which one the friendship was actually attached to becomes impossible to ignore. The moment one person begins to rise, to change, to discipline himself, to pursue something with intensity that the shared space does not accommodate, the ground tilts. And the tilt is not subtle. It registers in the nervous system the way an earthquake registers a deep, chemical sense that the equilibrium is gone, not because anyone chose to feel it. Because the human brain is a status monitoring machine that has been tracking hierarchies since before it developed the capacity for speech. When a peer changes position, the brain recalculates, automatically, involuntarily, below the level of conscious choice. And the recalculation produces a feeling that the modern world has taught men to suppress, deny, and refuse to name: envy. Not the dramatic, villainous envy of stories. The quiet, structural, almost mechanical envy that operates like a thermostat, measuring the temperature difference between one position and the position of someone who used to be an equal, and producing discomfort until the temperature equalizes. Either they come back down, or the other man goes up, or the friendship serves as insulation against a draft neither person will acknowledge. Machiavelli saw this play out between princes with armies. A ruler who rose too quickly did not need to attack anyone to create enemies. His rise was the attack. The men around him felt diminished not because he diminished them, but because his elevation changed the landscape in a way that made every other position feel lower without anyone moving an inch. And the retaliation came not as open warfare but as concern. They warned him he was moving too fast. They questioned his judgment. They reminded him of his origins. Every one of those reminders was a hand on a shoulder, pressing gently downward, back toward the altitude where their comfort was safe. 2 words, delivered with what sounds like genuine care: you have changed. And those 2 words are the most precisely engineered weapon in the entire arsenal of social maintenance. They do not mean what they appear to mean. They do not mean a man has become someone different. They mean he has broken the unspoken agreement to stay the same. The person speaking those words is not attacking. They are filing a grievance against a contract violation they do not have the language to articulate. Their grief is real. Their discomfort is genuine. But the fact that their grief is real does not make growth the crime they are charging. There is a specific silence that follows a man's announcement that he has started something new. A business, a discipline, a commitment that requires him to leave the shared space of comfortable stagnation. The room does not erupt. The room calculates. And in the calculating, in the half-second pause before the first response arrives, an intelligent man who is paying attention will hear the entire future of that friendship. The ones who speak first with genuine energy are the bonds. The ones who pause, recalibrate, and then assemble enthusiasm from parts that do not quite fit. Those are the contracts. Neither is evil. But only one will still be standing when the new life is built. Let that land. Henry VIII had a best friend and most trusted advisor named Thomas More. More was Lord Chancellor of England, the second most powerful man in the kingdom. He and Henry had a friendship that by all accounts was genuine. They dined together, debated philosophy together. Henry visited More's home in Chelsea for private conversations that lasted hours. The affection was real, but the contract underneath had a fault line that neither man saw until it cracked. Henry wanted to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. More, a devout Catholic, refused to support the annulment without violating his own conscience. The alignment that had made the friendship effortless suddenly had a chasm running through it. Henry asked for More's support. More did not give it. And Henry, who had loved Thomas More enough to call him a friend in a century where kings did not have friends, had him tried for treason and beheaded. Not because the love was fake, because the contract had terms that the love was powerless to override. And when the terms conflicted with the alignment won. It always wins. A woman who reads social dynamics with any level of sophistication, and most women have been reading them since childhood, with a fluency most men never develop, sees this architecture operating in real time. She notices the cooling in a friendship before the men involved have registered it consciously. She hears the edge in a joke before the person telling it knows the edge is there. When a perceptive woman reports that something has shifted in one of a man's relationships, she is not guessing. She is delivering intelligence that her nervous system confirmed before the conversation started. The men who ignore this intelligence are the men who end up on the wrong end of a contract they did not know had expired. Now, the flicker, the moment from the opening. Here is what it actually is, and once it is understood, a man owns a piece of information about human interaction that most people will go their entire lives without accessing. When something genuinely good happens to a man and he shares it, there is a window, less than 1 second. In that window, before the conscious mind assembles the socially appropriate response, the body tells the truth, the face tells the truth, the eyes tell the truth. There is a flash of genuine, unfiltered, involuntary reaction, and then the performance begins. In a bond that has survived a genuine shift in conditions, a bond built on something structural, not just contractual, the flash is joy, involuntary, reflexive. The face opens, the eyes light. The body moves forward. It is the response of a nervous system that genuinely benefits from the other person's success. Not because there is anything to gain, because the wiring runs deep enough that one man's happiness fires another man's happiness without a transaction in between. In an alliance operating on contract terms, a friendship where the alignment is strategic and the affection is real but the structure is conditional, the flash is different. Not hatred, not anger, quieter. A microcontraction around the eyes, a tightening in the jaw that lasts a fraction of a second, a pause before the smile assembles. The smile is genuine, the words are supportive. But the flash came first, and the flash was not celebration, it was recalculation. The internal accounting department updating the terms in real time. Status changed, position shifted, contract under review. The person who flickers is not a villain. This is the part that every other conversation on this subject deliberately leaves out because nuance reduces clicks. The person who flickers is a human being whose nervous system is processing a status change that their conscious mind has not caught up with yet. They did not choose the contraction. It happened to them the way a flinch happens automatically, involuntarily, beneath the floor of conscious decision. But noticing it, that is a different matter entirely. Noticing it, filing it, and understanding it as data about the current state of the contract is the single most valuable social skill a man can develop. Not because it reveals enemies, because it reveals the structural condition of every alliance in real time. A person who flickers today is not permanently categorized as a threat. They are a person whose contract is under stress at this moment, under these conditions. Conditions change. The person who flickered at one achievement will genuinely celebrate the next because by then they have found their own footing and the status gap no longer destabilizes them. The flash is a weather report, not a verdict. And the man who reads weather reports without panicking about every cloud is the man who navigates the landscape without getting caught in storms he should have seen coming. Sit with that for a second. Machiavelli understood this with a sophistication that most people who quote him miss entirely. He did not sort the world into friends and enemies. He understood that the same person is both at different times, under different conditions, depending on where the alignment sits. The man who demands permanent, unwavering loyalty does not understand human nature. The man who reads the conditions, adjusts his expectations, and maintains alliances with open eyes is the man who keeps those alliances intact through shifts that destroy everyone else's. Now, here is where this becomes something that belongs to you. Most content about friendship and betrayal ends with the diagnosis. It tells men people are fake. It tells them to cut everyone off. It tells them to trust no one, build walls, embrace isolation as strength. That content is the intellectual equivalent of fast food. It tastes like wisdom and provides no structure. A man feels validated for 20 minutes, and then he is alone in a room with fewer allies than he started with, and no framework for building better ones. Machiavelli is remembered as the man who said, "Trust no one." That is one of the greatest intellectual misreadings in 500 years of philosophy. What he actually wrote across the prints, across the discourses, across decades of political analysis is that trust should be proportional, intelligent, and continuously recalibrated. The prince who trusts blindly gets a dagger in his back. The prince who trusts no one gets surrounded by men who have nothing to lose by betraying him because he has already treated them as enemies. The prince who survives is the one who matches his trust to the evidence, adjusts as conditions change, and maintains enough warmth that his allies feel genuinely valued while maintaining enough awareness that he is never the last person in the room to notice a shift. That is not cynicism. That is engineering. And it is what this channel exists to hand you. The first principle of the upgrade is naming the contract out loud, to yourself, if not to the other person. Most friendships die because nobody ever acknowledges what the bond is actually built on. Two people become friends during shared adversity, same struggle, same frustration, same limitations. The friendship is real, but the foundation is the shared adversity. When one of them escapes the adversity, The contract does not automatically update to the new conditions. It requires renegotiation. And renegotiation requires something that most people find almost physically painful: honest acknowledgement of what the friendship was built on, and a clear-eyed assessment of whether it can survive on a different foundation. Most men would rather lose the friendship in silence than have that conversation. So the friendship dies, not because it had to, because honesty felt more dangerous than loss. The second principle is selective vulnerability. The man who is invulnerable to everyone is trusted by no one, because invulnerability signals that the alliance can be abandoned at any time without cost, which makes every ally feel disposable. The man who is vulnerable to everyone is used by everyone, because total openness is total exposure, and exposure without discernment is an invitation to exploitation. The intelligent move is calibrated openness, enough vulnerability that the other person feels genuinely trusted, enough awareness that you are not loading a weapon and handing it to someone who has not demonstrated what they will do with it. Machiavelli watched princes destroy themselves both ways: the ones who shared nothing and the ones who shared everything. The ones who shared nothing ruled empty courts. The ones who shared everything ruled until the first betrayal, which arrived faster than the ones who shared nothing ever imagined. The prince who lasted was the one who treated trust like currency, spent deliberately, tracked carefully, and never invested in a vault he had not tested first. The third principle is the one that transforms this from a diagnosis into an actual upgrade of how you operate in the world. And it is the one that requires self-examination instead of judgment. You are also someone else's flicker. Right now, in some alliance you are part of, the other person is reading you. They shared a win recently, and in the fraction of a second before your conscious mind assembled the appropriate response, your face did something, your eyes did something, and they noticed. The same way the man in the opening noticed. The architecture runs in both directions. The contract is mutual. The balance shifts both ways. And the man who spends all his time reading other people's flickers without ever examining his own is a man who will be diagnosed by this exact same framework from the other side of the table. The real question is not just who in your life is a bond and who is a contract. The question is, what kind of ally are you? When someone close to you succeeds, when their life visibly improves, when they break out of a limitation you still carry, what is your flash? Is it joy or is it recalculation? Because the answer does not just determine what kind of friends you attract, it determines what kind you deserve. And the man who catches his own contraction, who notices the recalculation and overrides it, who chooses genuine celebration when his nervous system is pulling toward comparison, is operating at a level of emotional engineering that Machiavelli would have recognized immediately as the difference between a prince who is remembered and a prince who is replaced. Which part of this landed hardest? Put it in the comments. Contract: the friendship that expired without a word. Balance: the person whose support went quiet when life started moving. Flash: the moment something crossed their face and got filed without a name. Grade: the person who passed the test and never got acknowledged for it. Name it, because this architecture does nothing while it stays theoretical. It rewrites everything the moment it gets personal. If this is the video that made the architecture visible, subscribe, not for content, for the operating system underneath every relationship, every power structure, every system they told you was built on trust when it was built on alignment. Every video on this channel is a piece of that system. Miss one, and the blind spot remains. There is a video on this channel about the 4 levels of masculine will, the operating system underneath every alliance, including the one you have with yourself. If this video showed you the architecture of your friendships, that one shows you the architecture of the man building them. This is your cold awakening.